The air inside the ruined outpost was cold and thin. Broken lights flickered without rhythm. Metal walls were torn open, bent like soft paper by an explosion long past. Silence ruled the place, deep and heavy, broken only by a small sound. A child sat on the floor. She was small, her body thin from hunger and fear. Her skin carried soft shades of blue and gray, not like any human child. Her eyes were large and dark, filled with confusion more than tears. Beside her lay the still body of her mother. The woman had not moved for many hours. The child touched her mother's hand again. It was cold now, colder than before. She pressed her ear to her chest, just like her mother once showed her. There was no sound inside, no slow beat, no warm breath. The child did not know the word for death. She only knew something was wrong. She tried to wake her. She shook her arm. She called out in her soft, broken voice. Her words echoed weakly in the empty room. No answer came back. The child's shoulders trembled. She curled closer to her mother's side, seeking warmth that no longer existed. Outside the outpost, the moon was dead. Gray dust covered everything. No plants grew here. No animals lived here. This place had once been a hidden shelter, a quiet stop for travelers who wanted to stay unseen. That safety was gone. The attack had come without warning. Ships filled the sky. Bright fire fell from above. Walls collapsed. People screamed. The child remembered being dragged into this room by her mother. She remembered the tight hold around her body. She remembered her mother whispering words meant to calm her. Then there was light, noise, pain. Then nothing. Now there was only silence. Time passed slowly. The child's stomach hurt. Her throat was dry. Fear sat heavy inside her chest. She did not know how long she had been alone.
Hours, maybe longer.
Then something changed. A sound. At first, she thought it was another memory, but it came again. A low hum, a vibration through the floor. The child lifted her head. Her eyes widened. Footsteps. Heavy, careful, not like the running boots from the attack. These were slow, measured. A shadow moved across the broken doorway. The child froze. A tall figure stepped inside. He was human. His armor was worn and scratched. Dust covered his boots. A long coat hung from his shoulders, torn at the edges. A breathing mask covered the lower half of his face, fogging slightly as he exhaled. In his hands he held a weapon, old but well kept. He was not supposed to be here. Humans rarely came this far into alien-controlled space. When they did, it was usually for one reason: scavenging. The man scanned the room, eyes sharp, body tense. He expected empty ruins, dead machines, broken tech. He did not expect a child. He stopped moving. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. The child stared back at him, frozen beside her mother's body. Her hands were clenched tight in the fabric of her mother's clothing. For a long moment, neither moved. The man's mind raced. He recognized the species at once. He had seen their images on bounty boards. He had heard rumors. This species was supposed to be gone, erased. Finding one alive meant trouble, big trouble. If anyone else found her, they would come fast. Warships fast. Killing cast. The safest choice was to turn around and leave. The smartest choice was to pretend he never saw her. The man took one step back. The child made a sound. It was small, Weak, not a word, just a sound of fear. His foot stopped mid-step. He looked again at the small body beside the dead woman. He noticed the dried blood on the floor, the scorch marks on the walls. The way the child's eyes kept moving between him and her mother, as if asking which one would disappear next. He felt something tighten inside his chest. The man cursed quietly under his breath. He removed his mask and clipped it to his belt. His face was rough, marked by age and old injuries. His eyes were tired, but not cruel. He crouched slowly, lowering himself to the child's level. "I won't hurt you," he said. His voice sounded strange in the quiet room. The child did not understand his words, but she understood his tone. Her body still shook, but she did not run. The man looked at the woman's body. He reached out and gently checked her neck. He already knew the result. Still, he closed his eyes for a second. "I'm sorry," he said, though he knew she could not hear. A sharp beep echoed suddenly through the outpost. The man's head snapped up. Another beep followed. Louder, warning lights flared red across the walls. Defense systems, old ones, still active. The man stood quickly. "No, no, no," he muttered. The child clutched her mother tighter as the floor began to vibrate. Outside, something powered on. The outpost's automated drones rose from hidden ports, weapons glowing as they searched for movement. The man swore again. He looked at the child. He had seconds. If the drone saw her heat signature, they would fire. They were not programmed to protect survivors anymore, only to remove threats. He rushed forward. The child screamed as strong arms lifted her from the floor. She kicked and cried, reaching back toward her mother. "I'm sorry," the man said again, louder now. "I'm sorry, but we have to go." A blast tore through the doorway behind them. Metal screamed. Fire burst through the hall. The man ran. He held the child tight against his chest, shielding her with his body as he moved through collapsing corridors. Drones fired, shots burning holes into walls just inches from them. The child buried her face into his coat, crying harder than before. The man pushed through a final hatch and leapt into his ship just as another explosion tore the outpost apart. The hatch slammed shut. The ship shook violently as engines roared to life. Through a cracked viewport, the child saw the outpost vanish in fire. Her mother was gone. The ship jumped into the dark. And the human, breathing hard, realized his life had just changed forever. The human tightened his grip on the small alien girl as the ship shuddered through the empty space. The engines hummed, straining under the weight of damage from the outpost escape. Sparks flew along the walls of the cockpit. The girl's eyes were wide, scanning everything around her with fear and curiosity. She had never seen a ship like this before. Metal walls, blinking lights, moving levers, and the strange smells of humans all around. The man did not speak. His mind raced too fast. He had to check the ship, find a safe course, and avoid any patrols. But most of all, he had to keep her alive. Every second without attention could mean death. Not just for him, but for the child. The galaxy had long forgotten mercy in these regions. Survivors were rare, and those like her were hunted. The girl finally found her voice, a small, trembling whisper. Where is Mama?" Her accent was soft and strange, but the man understood enough. He shook his head slowly, not wanting to lie, yet not knowing how to explain. Words would not fix what had happened. Instead, he pointed to the window.
"Not here anymore," he said. "We have to move."
"Safe place. Later," We talk." Her eyes filled with tears, but she understood enough to stop asking. She curled closer to him, and he felt the weight of her small, fragile body against his chest. He did not know how long they sat like that, silent, moving through the cold dark of space, but the quiet gave them both a moment to breathe, only for a moment. Finally, he moved. The ship's sensors showed nothing nearby. "We need food, water, shelter," he muttered, mostly to himself. "And fast. You cannot survive long without it." He glanced at the girl. She nodded weakly. She did not speak, only watched him with large eyes that seemed older than her years. Loss had a way of forcing early understanding. He started the repairs in the engine room first. Sparks, wires, and strange blue fluids from the ship's core made the space smell sharp and dangerous. He worked fast, cutting, rewiring, and replacing parts with whatever he could salvage. The child followed at a distance, trying not to touch anything. She was too small to help, too fragile to risk, but she wanted to do something. Anything. He noticed her watching the panels, her fingers twitching toward the lights. She seemed to understand patterns, but he could not stop now to teach. Hours passed. At some point, the ship leveled out in a quieter orbit, far from the destruction of the outpost. Stars streaked past as they traveled. The girl moved closer to the controls, curiosity overcoming fear. She reached for a lever. He grabbed her hand, gently. "Not yet," he said. "Dangerous. Leave alone." She frowned but stayed quiet. Slowly he realized she was not just scared. She was clever. She noticed details he missed, remembered patterns, and listened more than she spoke. She might survive, he thought, but only if he could protect her. Then a warning flashed on the main console. A small red icon blinked. He frowned, leaning forward. It was a tracking signal. Someone had already marked the child. Her DNA, her presence, her life, all recorded in the galactic system. Bounties, he thought. Killers, collectors, anyone willing to follow the rules of money and power. He cursed softly. It was worse than he thought. The girl noticed the light. She tilted her head, eyes curious. "They come?" she whispered. Her words were broken. "God, Subber," he shook his head. "Soon, maybe," he said. "We must hide." She nodded, hiding her face against his coat. He felt her trembling again, not just from fear, but from the cold realization that the galaxy outside would not forgive. No one would stop. He moved them both to the rear of the ship. There was a small maintenance bay, just big enough for two. He closed the hatch and secured it. The girl sat on the floor, hugging her knees. He leaned against the wall, taking a deep breath. His body ached. His mind raced. He realized then the truth he had avoided. He could not return her to anyone. No family, no safety nets. She was alone in a galaxy that wanted her dead. And now, he was the only hope she had. He considered his options. Jump to a safe system, stay hidden, or fight. Each choice had risks. Each could cost lives. He did not want to think about the bounty hunters, the war fleets, the mercenaries who would follow. Yet he had no choice. Survival meant action, fast, calculated action. He tightened his hands around his tools, breathing deep. "We go," he whispered to himself. For hours they stayed in silence. Then he noticed the child trying to stand. She wobbled, almost fell. He caught her quickly. "Sit down," he said. "Ah!" She obeyed but kept looking around. She did not speak, but he felt her watching, learning. She was absorbing everything. The human realized she might help him someday. or she might get them both killed if they made a wrong move. He had to teach her. Not now. Not while they were being hunted. But later, she would need to understand. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. Not an engine problem. Something outside. Sensors picked up multiple heat signatures moving fast, surrounding them. He cursed.
Bounty hunters. Too many.
Too fast. He moved to the controls. The girl grabbed his arm, eyes wide. Them? Coming? She asked. He nodded, biting his lip.
Yes, he said. We run.
The stars stretched into long streaks. The human held her tight. She buried her face into his chest, trembling. The jump shook the ship. Sparks flew. Systems screamed. And for a moment, nothing existed but them and the void. When they arrived, the space was quieter. A small asteroid field surrounded them, perfect for hiding. He slowed the ship, carefully weaving between massive rocks. The girl relaxed slightly, but did not move from his chest. He landed in a small clearing, engines whispering instead of roaring. Outside, asteroids glimmered like stones in a river, silent witnesses to the dark. He checked the ship. Minimal damage, enough to stay hidden. He looked at the girl. "We rest," he said. "Then we decide." "You understand?" She nodded slowly. She wanted to ask more, about her mother, about the hunters, about everything. But she stayed quiet. He was right. Decisions could wait. Rest now. Survive first. They ate what little supplies the human had. Ration packs, cold water, synthetic fruit. The girl ate slowly, unsure. The taste was strange, not like anything she knew. But hunger was hunger. He watched her, and for a moment, a small smile crossed her lips. She trusted him, even a little. That trust would be dangerous in the galaxy outside, but for now it was hope. As night passed, or what passed for night in space, the human kept watch. Sensors hummed softly. He listened to the small noises of the ship. The girl slept, her head against the wall, a small hand touching his arm as if to remember he was there. He could feel the weight of what had just begun. Could not let her die. Not again. Not now. He remembered other times he had seen death. Families torn apart, people left behind. He had always run from it, avoiding responsibility, keeping himself alive. But this child was different. He could not leave. She was alive, alone. His problem now, his responsibility. Maybe the first real responsibility he had chosen in years. Outside, somewhere in the darkness, ships moved. Watching, waiting. Bounty hunters, mercenaries, enforcers of laws that punished the innocent. But he was not afraid. Not entirely. He had survived worse. He knew humans could be clever, resourceful, dangerous. Not because of strength, but because they would never give up when someone they protected needed them. The girl stirred, opening her eyes. She looked at him not with fear, but with a quiet question. A small, fragile question. "I stay?" she asked. She did not know the word for life yet, but she wanted to survive. She wanted to stay with him. He nodded, tightening his grip on her small hand. "Yes," he said. "You stay. Safe."
I promise. It was not a promise he could easily keep.
They were being hunted. The galaxy wanted her dead, and the next few days would test them both. They would need more than courage. They would need luck, skill, and most of all, trust. trust between a human and a child of another world. He did not sleep. He could not bit, not while she slept. He monitored sensors. He repaired engines. He prepared for what he knew would come. The bounty hunters would not stop. They never did. But he had a plan. Something small, dangerous, and clever. Something only a human could do. The girl woke again. She watched him, did not speak, did not ask. She only observed. And the human realized something strange. She was not only a child in need. She was alive. She was strong. In her way. She had survived death, destruction, and loss. And she had survived this long. That meant something. That meant hope. For now, he kept that hope close. For her, for himself, and for the galaxy, which would soon learn that leaving a child behind could awaken more than grief. It could awaken determination, and humans never left hope behind. The ship hovered quietly among the asteroids, dark shadows hiding them from the endless void of space. The human checked the controls again, his hand steady but his mind restless. Every signal outside could mean danger. Every sound could be a threat. The small alien girl sat close, her arms wrapped around her knees, watching him with wide eyes. She did not speak. She was learning. She was watching, and he noticed how clever she was, noticing patterns he missed, seeing dangers before he even realized them. That was rare for any child, human or otherwise. Hours passed. He repaired systems that had been damaged in the escape. Sparks flew, metal hummed, and he worked quickly, aware that the moment they spent repairing could be their last if someone discovered them. The girl occasionally reached out to help, touching wires or levers with small, careful hands. He moved her away gently. "No, not yet," he said. She only nodded, but he could see in her eyes that she wanted to understand, that she wanted to help. He made a note in his mind. She would have to learn fast. Suddenly, the main console beeped. A red icon blinked sharply. He leaned forward, heart sinking. A tracking signal. Someone was already looking for her. The bounty was active. He cursed under his breath. The galaxy was bigger than they thought, and someone had already sent the signal. Multiple ships, fast and precise, would soon arrive to take the child. He swallowed hard. He knew their reputation. They would not stop. They would not negotiate. They would take the girl by force or kill everything in the way. The girl noticed the blinking icon, her head tilted, eyes curious and frightened.
"Them coming?" she asked in her broken accent. He nodded, trying not to show panic.
"Yes. Soon," he said. "We must hide." She leaned closer to him, hiding her small face against his chest, trembling. He held her tightly, feeling the weight of responsibility more clearly than ever. This child's life depended on him, and if he failed, she would die. There was no one else. He activated the ship's stealth systems. It was old technology, barely functioning, but it could hide them for a while. He guided the vessel through the thick asteroid field. Every rock, every shadow became an ally. Outside, the heat signatures of approaching ships flickered faintly on the sensors. They would be close soon. He prepared a small escape plan. He knew he could not fight them head-on. The odds were too high, the enemy too many. Survival meant outsmarting them, not facing them. The girl watched, silent but alert. She moved closer, sensing his tension, I help, she whispered. Her voice was small, unsure, but full of determination. He looked at her, shaking his head. No, not yet, he said. Too dangerous. But he understood the spark in her eyes. She would not just sit and wait. She wanted to survive. She wanted to be part of this fight, even though she was small and fragile. That was dangerous, but he could not stop her curiosity. Not entirely. Hours turned into long minutes of careful navigation. The ships outside moved slowly, methodical. They were hunting, using sensors that could detect any life sign. He adjusted the ship's position repeatedly, weaving through the asteroid field like a shadow. Each move had to be precise. A single miscalculation could reveal them. The girl's small hands tightened around her knees, watching every movement, absorbing every detail. She was learning faster than he expected. Finally, he found a small hollow inside a large asteroid. It was narrow, hidden from scanners. He maneuvered the ship inside. The walls pressed close on either side, but it was safe. For now, he shut down the engines and checked the sensors again. No movement outside. They had a temporary reprieve. He exhaled slowly, finally allowing himself a small moment of rest. The girl looked at him. Her eyes searched his face, trying to understand. "Safe?" she asked softly. He nodded. "For now," he said, "but not forever." She shivered, not from cold, but from fear. He pulled her close again, holding her tightly.
"We must be smart," he said. "We must survive."
"That is all that matters now." She nodded, silent. They ate the small rations left in the ship. The girl ate slowly, tasting the synthetic food with hesitation. She had never eaten anything like this before. The human watched her carefully, making sure she ate enough to keep her strength. Hunger would weaken her, make her vulnerable. She was already small, already fragile. He could not allow anything more to harm her. As night, or what passed for night in space, fell, the human kept watch. The girl slept beside him, curling her small body against his side. He watched the sensors, scanning for any sign of movement outside. He knew the bounty hunters would not stop. They never did. The galaxy was filled with greed, with people who saw life as a currency, and the girl's life was valuable. Too valuable. And they wanted her. He thought about the child's mother, about how she had fought to protect her. He remembered the small, frantic hands, the whispered words meant to calm the girl. He had seen her courage, even in the face of death. That courage lived now in the child. She survived because of it. And now, he carried that responsibility. Not just to keep her alive, but to honor the life that had been lost protecting her. The girl stirred in her sleep. Her small hand brushed against his arm. She was dreaming, perhaps of her mother, or perhaps of a place that felt safe. He looked at her closely, noticing the faint glow in her eyes even in sleep. She was not just a child. She was strong in ways he could not yet measure. She had survived destruction, abandonment, and terror. That made her dangerous to their enemies and valuable to those who understood her potential. He thought about the bounty hunters. They would come.
They would not stop.
They would not care about her innocence or her fragility. Only the reward mattered. He had to be ready. Every plan had to account for them. Every move could be the difference between life and death. He could not fail. He would not fail. The girl woke again, slowly, her eyes searching. She looked at him and reached for his hand. "I stay?" she asked. The words were broken, but the meaning was clear. She wanted to survive. She wanted to trust. She wanted to be part of this. He nodded firmly. Yes, you stay. Safe, I promise. The promise hung in the air. It was not easy. It was not certain. But it was a bond. A human and a child of another world, connected by survival, by fear, by hope. The galaxy outside could wait. For now, it was just them, hiding, planning, living. The human checked the sensors one last time. No signs of immediate threat, but he knew better. The galaxy never paused. The ships would arrive. They would find them, and when they did, there would be no room for mistakes. He tightened his grip on the girl's hand. Together, they would face whatever came next, and for the first time he felt a strange warmth in his chest. Responsibility, yes. Fear, yes. But also hope. Outside the asteroid, stars moved silently. Space was vast, empty, and unforgiving. But inside the small ship, two lives clung together against the darkness. One human, one child of another world. Both alone in a galaxy that wanted them gone. Both determined to survive. And in that determination, the human realized something important. They were not helpless. Not yet. Not while they had each other. And in a galaxy filled with hunters and killers, that small connection might be the only weapon they had. A weapon of hope, of care, and of courage. The night passed slowly. The girl slept again, curling against him, safe for a moment. He watched over her, alert, listening. The galaxy would not rest. Neither could they. But for now, they survived. And survival was the first step towards something more. Something bigger. Something neither of them fully understood yet, but both would discover together. He tightened his hold on the controls, keeping the ship hidden. He looked at the small face beside him, and he made a silent vow. No one would take her from him. No one would harm her. And if the galaxy wanted a fight, they would find a human ready to defend what mattered. The child stirred again, muttering something in her strange language. He did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. She was not afraid of him. She trusted him. And trust, fragile as it was, could survive even in the darkest places of space. For the first time in years, the human allowed himself a small thought. Maybe they could survive. Maybe they could escape. Maybe, together, they could change the rules of this cruel galaxy, one small life at a time. The stars stretched endlessly outside the viewport. The ships would come. The bounty hunters would arrive. But inside the small ship, hope burned quietly, stubbornly, defiantly. And for now, that was enough. The asteroid shelter was quiet, but the human knew it would not stay that way for long. Outside, the galaxy moved with a slow, steady cruelty. Ships passed, sensors scanned, and somewhere far away, people were already plotting how to find the child. He had learned one thing in his life. The universe did not care about innocence. It only cared about opportunity and risk. And right now, the girl beside him was the most valuable opportunity anyone could find. He checked the ship's systems again. Repairs were holding, but barely. The engines could fail if they jumped again too soon. Communications were offline, which was good. No one could detect them by signal, but supplies were low. Food was nearly gone, water was limited. He looked at the girl, sleeping curled up on a small seat. Her breathing was shallow but steady. She had not eaten much since the escape, only small bites from ration packs. He knew he had to act before weakness made her vulnerable. The human pulled his coat tighter against the cold metal walls. The asteroid offered hiding, but no real safety. There were pockets and small tunnels inside, remnants of old mining operations. He moved the ship carefully into a narrow chamber, far from sensors and line of sight. He had learned long ago that hiding did not mean safety. It only meant you had a chance to survive. The rest depended on speed, planning, and a bit of luck. The girl stirred and opened her eyes. They were wide, curious, and still wary. She looked at him. "We stay?" she asked softly. Her voice was small, uncertain. He shook his head. "Not forever," he said. "Only while we plan. Only while it is safe." She nodded. She did not speak again, but her eyes followed him. She was learning everything he did. She noticed movements, lights, and small sounds he had not thought about. It made him nervous. Clever children could save lives, but clever children could also make mistakes that brought death. He moved to the supplies, checking every pack and container. There was just enough to last a few more days. He would have to ration carefully. He handed a small pack to the girl. "Eat," he said. She looked at it, then at him. "Good?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes."
You need strength. We move soon.
She ate slowly, unfamiliar with the taste, unfamiliar with anything here. But she ate. The quiet did not last long. Sensors picked up faint movements in the asteroid belt outside. He froze, listening. Yes, they were coming closer. Small ships. Fast. Hunters. He knew them by the rhythm of the engines, the spacing, the direction. Too precise to be random. Too close to be anything else. He quickly grabbed his tools and weapons, checking everything one last time. He had to prepare. There would be no second chance. The girl watched him, her small hands gripping the edge of the seat. She wanted to help, but he shook his head. "Wait," he said. "Watch, learn, not yet." She nodded. Her large eyes followed every move, learning patterns and listening to the hum of machinery. He could see understanding growing in her. One day she could help. For now, she could survive. That was enough. The ships approached. Outside, shadows moved across the rocks, scanning for signs of life. He adjusted the ship's position, angling it behind a thick rock that blocked most sensors. It was a temporary solution. He would need more permanent cover soon. He could not stay here forever. If the hunters found them, there would be no mercy. He had seen that before. Death was quick and cold. Hours passed in tense silence. The girl sat quietly, occasionally glancing at the small viewport, watching the stars and rocks outside. She whispered to herself in her strange language, trying to understand the situation. He did not stop her. It was important for her to process, even if she did not fully understand yet. Finally, the human made a decision. They could not stay hidden forever. Supplies were running low. The hunters would find them if they waited too long. He would have to move. He checked the navigation systems, plotting a course through a series of asteroid tunnels that could hide them from scanners. It was risky. Narrow passages, sharp turns, and debris could damage the ship. But the risk was smaller than waiting. He explained the plan to the girl, slowly, pointing at the small navigation map. She nodded, understanding enough to follow his instructions. "We move," he said. She hugged herself tightly but did not cry. Fear was still there, but so was determination. She wanted to survive. She wanted to stay alive, and she trusted him enough to follow. They prepared for the jump. Engines powered up carefully. avoiding loud noises that could be detected outside. The ship shook slightly, carrying them through tight tunnels, around jagged rocks, and into deeper parts of the asteroid belt. Outside, the hunters were near, searching with precision. But inside, the ship moved like a shadow, unseen, unheard. The girl watched, fascinated. She had never seen movement like this. She had never felt the hum of engines under her feet, the vibration of the ship against the walls. She reached out to touch a small control panel. He took her hand gently. "Not yet," he said. "Dangerous." She nodded, keeping her hands in her lap. She was learning patience, even if she did not fully understand why. They moved slowly, carefully, through the tunnels. Every twist and turn required attention. Every shadow outside could hide danger. He guided the ship with steady hands, watching sensors, watching the girl, and watching the small red blips outside that indicated movement. The hunters were close, too close, but he had a plan, a risky plan, the kind that only humans could pull off because humans were clever, stubborn, and willing to take chances others would not. Finally, they reached a small cavern inside a larger asteroid. It was narrow but deep enough to hide the ship completely. He shut down the engines. The hum of power faded. They were hidden. For now, outside, the hunters moved past, scanning, unaware of their presence. The human exhaled, tension leaving his shoulders slightly. He looked at the girl. She was still alert, watching, waiting. He gave her water and small rations. She ate slowly, carefully. He noticed how quickly she adapted, how quickly she learned the patterns of movement and sound. He realized she was more than just a child. She was a survivor. She had inherited strength from her mother, strength that could help them survive the hunters. He smiled faintly. Perhaps she could be trained. Perhaps she could help. Hours passed. Outside, the galaxy moved with silent cruelty. Inside the cavern, they rested. The girl slept, curled beside him. He kept watch, listening to every sound, watching every sensor. The hunters would not give up. The galaxy never stopped. He knew they would come again. But now they had time. Time to prepare, time to plan, and time to survive. He thought about what had happened, about the mother who had died protecting the child. He thought about the violence outside, the cruelty of the galaxy, and the determination it would take to survive. He had never promised to protect anyone. He had never stayed for anyone, but now he was responsible. And responsibility, he realized, gave a strange kind of power. The girl stirred again. She opened her eyes, looking at him. "We safe?" she asked. Her voice was soft, broken, but hopeful. He nodded. "For now," he said, "we rest. Then we move again." She nodded. She did not speak more. She trusted him. That trust was fragile, but it existed, and in a galaxy that wanted them dead, trust was a weapon. The night passed slowly. Outside, the stars continued their silent journey. Inside, the human and the child slept in turns, keeping watch, keeping each other safe. The galaxy would not rest. Hunters would not rest, but inside the small cavern, for now, they had survived. And survival, even for a moment, was enough. He held her close one last time before sleep took him. She was small, fragile, but alive. And alive, he realized, was enough to start fighting. The galaxy would learn soon that leaving a child alone could awaken more than fear. It could awaken determination, courage, and the power to survive against impossible odds. And the human, holding the small hand of the alien child, knew one thing clearly. He would not abandon her. Not now, not ever. And if the galaxy wanted to test them, it would find humans who refused to give up, who refused to let life end without a fight. Inside the quiet asteroid, hope burned softly, stubbornly, like a small flame that refused to die. And for now, that was all that mattered. The human adjusted the ship's small sensors, watching the empty space beyond the asteroid's walls. The galaxy was still, but he knew it was only quiet for the moment. The hunters would not give up. They would not rest until the child was found. Every ship, every patrol, every scout could be following their signal. He had survived this kind of threat before, but never with a child so small, so fragile, and so important. Her life made the stakes higher than ever. The girl moved beside him, silent, her small hands touching the controls, curious but careful. "Why they come?" she asked. Her voice was small, innocent, but it carried fear. He shook his head. "Because they want you," he said. "Because you are special. Because people are cruel sometimes. But we will survive."
We must.
She nodded slowly, trying to understand. She had learned quickly that the universe was dangerous, but she was learning that there were humans who could fight back, who could protect her. He studied the asteroid's narrowed tunnels and caverns, thinking about the next move. They could not stay hidden forever. Supplies were low. Food was almost gone. Water was rationed. Every second they waited was a second closer to discovery. The child needed more than hiding. She needed to move. She needed to be somewhere safe. But safe places were rare. He knew that traveling through open space with bounty hunters hunting them would be dangerous. Every jump could reveal their location. Every jump could be their last. He made a plan. It was risky, but it was the only way. They would move through uncharted systems, small human colonies that were hidden, forgotten, and nearly abandoned. Some still survived. Few humans lived there, and they were clever, cautious, and used to danger. The human knew that one of these colonies could hide them, could give them a chance to recover and plan. The girl would be safe there, at least for a short time. He explained the plan to her. "We go to people who can help," he said. "We stay hidden. We get stronger. We survive." She nodded, trusting him, but her eyes were still worried. She did not want to leave. She did not want to go anywhere without knowing it was safe. But she also understood that they had no choice. The hunters were coming. The galaxy would not stop. They prepared the ship for the jump. He checked the engines, the navigation, and the hull. Every system had to work perfectly. Any failure could mean discovery, capture, or death. The girl watched him, silent, learning, absorbing every movement. She had begun to understand patterns. She knew when to be quiet, when to stay out of the way, and when to pay attention. She was learning the rules of survival faster than he had expected. Finally, they jumped. Stars stretched into lines, light and color blurring around them. The ship shook slightly, engines whining. The girl gripped the edge of her seat, feeling the strange pull of the jump. He held her hand, keeping her steady, whispering calm words. "Safe," he said. "Just a little longer. Almost there." She nodded, trusting him again, letting the fear pass slowly through her small body. When they arrived, the new system was quiet. An abandoned human colony lay on the surface of a small planet. Most of the buildings were collapsed, overgrown, or silent. Only a few humans moved carefully among the ruins. The human guided the ship to a hidden landing pad, small and surrounded by walls of rock. They could land without being seen. They could rest. But it was only temporary. He carried the girl out of the ship and into the colony. She looked around in awe. This was her first time on a planet with air to breathe, with soil beneath her feet, with plants that were not metal or synthetic. The humans who saw them stopped for a moment. They were cautious, wary, but not hostile. They recognized him and understood immediately that he brought something important, something that could change the balance for this colony. The girl followed him, silent but attentive. Every detail mattered. Every sound mattered. He watched humans move, noticed the way they spoke, and listened to their patterns. He realized she was learning faster than he had expected. She would need these lessons. One day, she might have to use them herself to survive. The human explained to the colony elders why they had arrived. They listened carefully. They understood the danger. They saw the child, alone, scared, and important. A vote was held. Some wanted to hand the child over to keep the colony safe. Some wanted to hide her and risk everything. The human knew he could not allow her to be taken. He had to fight, even if it meant standing alone. "I will not leave her," he said firmly. "She survives with me, or not at all." The elders looked at him, weighing the risk. Finally, a small group agreed to help. Secretly, they would hide the child, protect her, and aid in planning the next move. The human nodded. It was a small victory, but an important one. They had a chance to survive longer. The girl watched quietly as humans prepared defenses. She noticed the weapons, the barricades, the sensors, and the small teams moving carefully through the ruins. She did not understand everything, but she learned quickly. She saw how humans use strategy, not just force. They prepared for attacks, knowing the enemy would come. She realized that humans could be clever, even if they were not as fast or strong as some alien species. Their mind was their weapon. Night fell on the colony. The human and the child sat together on a small wall, looking out at the dark horizon. "They will come," he said.
Hunters, bounty seekers.
"The galaxy does not forget." She nodded silently, gripping his arm. Fear was still there, but so was determination. She had survived so far. She would survive again. She wanted to trust him completely. He held her close, feeling the weight of responsibility stronger than ever. The human checked sensors again. Movement far in the distance. Ships. They were coming. Faster than he expected. He adjusted the defenses, made plans for escape routes, and prepared the colony for the worst. He knew this would not be easy. He knew they could not fight a full fleet. But he also knew humans could surprise their enemies. They could fight back in ways no one expected. The child would see this. She would learn. She would survive. Hours passed. The girl watched quietly as humans prepared traps and defenses. She noticed details he had not seen before. She asked questions, small ones, about the ships, about weapons, about the way humans planned. He answered carefully, not revealing everything, but enough for her to understand that survival depended on thinking, not just running. She began to grasp the idea that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Finally, the ships arrived. Shadows moved in the sky. Sensors blipped. The hunters had found them. The human tightened his grip on the girl's hand. "Stay close," he said. She nodded. Fear was strong, but she was learning to control it. She would watch, she would learn, and she would act when the time came. The battle began quietly at first. Small ships darted through the sky, scanning, testing, probing the defenses. The humans were ready. They moved quickly, silently, striking at the right moments. The girl watched every movement, understanding the patterns, seeing how humans could fight with their minds, not just their weapons. She realized that courage and planning could defeat numbers. Strategy could overcome power. The human led her through safe points, showing her where to hide and how to move without being seen. She learned quickly, mimicking his actions, observing the humans, absorbing every detail. Her fear was still there, but it was now mixed with determination. She was alive. She would stay alive. She would survive. Hours passed. The battle escalated. Ships collided. Explosions rocked the planet. The humans fought hard, refusing to give in, refusing to surrender. And the child saw something important. Humans did not give up. They never left anyone behind. They would fight to protect life, even against impossible odds. She understood that this human, her only hope, was willing to risk everything for her. That trust, fragile as it was, gave her courage. Finally, the enemy retreated, at least temporarily. The human checked on her. "Safe for now," he said. She looked at him, her eyes wide, full of trust and hope. He held her close. "We survived," he said. "We will survive again." And in that moment she realized that life, even in the darkest places, could be protected by courage, determination, and the willingness to fight for what mattered. The night fell again. The colony rested, tending to the wounded and repairing the damage. The girl slept next to him, finally calm. He watched over her, listening to the quiet, feeling the weight of responsibility stronger than ever. Outside, the galaxy would continue to move. Hunters would come again. The threat would not end. But inside the small human colony, 2 lives survived against impossible odds, and the spark of hope burned brightly, stubbornly, and defiantly. The first light of the planet's sun touched the colony, scattering long shadows over the broken buildings and battered streets. The air smelled of dust and burned metal from the battle the night before. The human moved quietly through the settlement, checking on the survivors, listening to reports, and making sure the defenses were ready. The galaxy had not forgotten them. The bounty hunters would return. The enemy fleets would continue to search, and the child they protected would still be the target. Every moment counted. Every decision could mean life or death. The girl walked beside him, small and careful, her hands folded in front of her. She had grown stronger in the last days, not just in body, but in mind. She had learned to notice small signs of danger, to listen to patterns in the human's movements, to understand the rhythms of survival. She still remembered her mother, still grieved, but she had learned that survival required more than grief. Survival required action, observation, and courage. The human glanced at her. She looked back at him, eyes wide, full of questions that she did not ask. He knew what she was thinking. She wanted to help. She wanted to fight. She wanted to survive. He nodded once, silently acknowledging that she was ready for what was to come. She was more than a child now. She was a partner in this struggle. The enemy fleet appeared suddenly, a shadow across the sky, their ships moving with deadly precision. They had found them again. The human did not panic. He had prepared. Humans never gave up. They never ran without a plan. He moved quickly, signaling the colony's defenders, coordinating their positions, and setting traps in ways that only humans could think of. The girl watched, absorbing every action. She saw patterns, strategies, and the courage required to fight when the odds were impossible. The battle began. In the quiet of the morning, small ships darted through the sky, firing, scanning, and probing. Explosions shook the ground. Dust rose into the air. Humans moved quickly, using cover, misdirection, and clever tactics to strike at the enemy. The girl crouched beside him, hiding behind a wall, her small hands gripping a rock she had picked up. She wanted to help. She wanted to fight. She learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. Hours passed in tension. The human led the girl through safe points, showing her how to move, how to hide, and how to strike if needed. She followed carefully, never making a sound. Learning from his every movement, she understood the value of silence, observation, and timing. Every step she took was a lesson in survival. Every action he took was a demonstration of human cleverness and resilience. She began to understand that humans could be dangerous not because of strength, but because they never gave up. The enemy pressed harder. Ships bombarded the colony, trying to break through defenses, but the humans were ready. They fought with precision, clever traps, and unexpected strategies. The girl watched in awe as humans moved together, communicating without words, covering each other, and never giving in. She realized that protection, strategy, and courage could overcome numbers. She began to feel something she had not felt in days: hope. The human noticed her expression and smiled faintly. "You see?" he whispered. "Humans survive. We fight. We protect. We do not leave anyone behind." She nodded, understanding more than words could describe. She began to feel that her survival was not only in her own hands, but in the hands of those who were willing to fight alongside her. That realization brought her courage and determination. The battle reached its peak. The enemy flagship descended toward the colony's center. Humans positioned their defenses strategically, luring it into traps, ambushing smaller ships first, and isolating the larger one. The girl watched carefully, noticing how the human's mind worked, how every action had a reason, and how humans could turn a desperate situation into a chance to survive. She understood that cleverness, courage, and coordination could defeat even the strongest enemy. The human signaled her to stay close and follow his instructions. "This is dangerous," he said. "Watch, learn, survive. That is all you need to do right now." She nodded silently, gripping his arm tightly. Fear was there, but it no longer controlled her. She had learned that fear could be used, not avoided. She had learned that courage was a choice. The enemy flagship moved into the trap. Explosions erupted around it. Humans struck quickly, using every tool, every weapon, every clever trick they had. The girl watched as the enemy faltered, confused by strategies they did not expect. She realized that humans could be dangerous in ways her species never considered. Intelligence, courage, and determination were as powerful as strength or weapons. Finally, the flagship retreated, damaged and disoriented. The smaller ships scattered, retreating into the void. The human checked on the girl. "Safe," he said. She nodded, relief washing over her small face. They had survived again, and in that moment she understood something important. Life could be protected, and even the galaxy's cruelty could be fought with courage and strategy. The colony began to recover. Humans tended to the wounded, repaired damaged buildings, and prepared for future threats. The girl watched quietly, learning every detail, understanding the value of community, preparation, and resilience. She had survived death, destruction, and abandonment. Now she was learning survival, courage, and the power of trust. The human and the girl moved to a quiet place at the edge of the colony. The sun set, painting the sky with colors she had never seen. She looked at him, eyes full of questions. "We stay?" she asked. He smiled, holding her hand. "Yes, we stay, for now," he said. "We rest, then we plan. Then we survive." She nodded, understanding that survival was a continuous effort. She had learned patience, observation, and courage. That night, the human kept watch while she slept. He listened to the quiet, to the faint hum of the colony, and to the distant stars. Outside, the galaxy continued its cruel dance. Hunters would return, the enemy fleets would continue to search. But inside the small colony, 2 lives had survived against impossible odds. Hope burned quietly, stubbornly, and defiantly. The girl woke briefly and looked at him. She reached out a small hand.
"I stay," she said. Her voice was small but full of meaning.
He nodded, squeezing her hand. "Yes," he said, "you stay. Safe. Always." She smiled faintly, understanding that her survival was no longer only about hiding, but about learning, growing, and trusting those who would fight for her. Days passed. The galaxy moved, but the colony remained prepared. Humans repaired ships, reinforced walls, and planned for any future attack. The girl helped as she could, small hands carrying supplies, observing strategies, and learning from every action. She had grown stronger. She had learned courage, strategy, and trust. And most importantly, she had learned that life, even fragile and small, could be protected if one refused to give up. The human watched her quietly. He realized that she was more than a survivor. She was a symbol of resilience, of hope, and of what humans could achieve when they chose to protect life. He understood that her presence had changed the colony, changed the way they viewed the galaxy, and changed him. He had fought for many things before, but never for something so precious, so innocent, and so alive. The galaxy would continue to test them. Threats would return. Bounty hunters, fleets, and enemies would come again. But they were ready. Together, they had survived death, destruction, and fear. Together, they had learned courage, trust, and the power of human determination. And the child, once abandoned beside her mother's lifeless body, had found a protector, a guide, and a family in the human who refused to leave her behind. The stars shone in the sky. The colony was quiet. The human and the girl looked out over the settlement. Life was fragile, the galaxy was dangerous, but hope burned brightly. And in that hope, they found strength, courage, and a chance to survive and thrive together. For the first time since the child had been abandoned, she felt safe. She felt hope, and she understood that sometimes life's most powerful weapon was the determination to protect it, no matter the odds. The human had shown her that humans could be guardians, protectors, and fighters for what mattered. And in that lesson, she found the courage to face the galaxy with trust, bravery, and a determination to survive. The night was long but calm. And in that calm, the human and the child rested, ready for whatever the galaxy would bring. They had survived the impossible. They had survived against hunters, fleets, and betrayal. And together they had learned the most important lesson. Life, no matter how fragile, could be protected, cherished, and fought for. And that was enough.